Hello, people. Today, let us talk a bit about something that might or might not be scary to you. It might be interesting to you, but I don't know if you have seen one. I have seen quite a few of them, and that is snakes. Okay, so I remember a lot of incidents where I have seen snakes precisely because I used to live in this place where there were a lot of you know, like it was a very densely green area and there were some ponds around. And yeah, so let us get ahead with the topic at hand. So the snakes are reptiles and they are, elongated. They, and of course, they have a very different mechanism than other mammals and probably many other animals that you see throughout the day. Okay, so they belong to the order Serpentis. Okay. Now, see, the order is a division in the animal kingdom that helps us to put a label on the animals. Okay. And like I mentioned, right? Suppose you have a set of diaries and you want to know what to do with this diary, what to do with that diary, and you put a label on them. One is for your recipes, one is for your daily journaling, one is for your studies, work. And the next time you want to reach out to them, you just use the labels to locate them. Similarly, animals, plants, bacteria, scientists use labels for them, okay, so that they can reach out to them, and like they can list them. And when they have to work with them or do something with them, they can use those labels so that it gets easier. Okay, so like I had mentioned that the elephant in the elephant videos, if you remember, that the elephant belonged to the family called Proboscidea. Similarly, the snakes belong to the family of squamates. Okay, so snakes, my people, are ectothermic. Any idea what ectothermic is? Well, we living organisms, our blood is divided in between endothermic and ectothermic. Okay, so ectothermic are those animals who have cold blood, which means that unlike those of us, they are not warm blooded. It also means that, you know irrespective of what the temperature is out there, these snakes, they have a very cold body temperature. Okay, so snakes are also amniotes, and that is a classification of the animal kingdom which had four legs once, and it belonged long back. And those other reptiles, snakes, are now extinct, and they comprise of a vast majority of living terrestrial and semi-aquatic vertebrates. Okay, so like that snakes are semi-aquatic. What does it mean? It means that snakes live both on the water and they also live on land. Okay, so I mean, just imagine that if you see a snake today at your garden roof, terrace, where not, you don't know if it has come from the nearest pond, if it has come from the nearest neighborhood. They survive both on water and on land. Okay, so amniotes, these very old classification of snakes, from where a lot of them are probably now extinct and a lot of them have evolved into other species of reptiles and snakes, came from amphibious stem tetrapod ancestors during the Carboniferous period. By the way, people, Amniota, this species of snakes, okay, it contains even us humans, it contains the Greek tortoise and it contains the Nile crocodile. Now, this classification is a very diverse classification, okay? Serpentes, amnio, amniota. The thing is, see, when scientists make a lot of classification, they go as back as they can. And the fact that we human beings and snakes come from the same classification family means that somewhere back then, I mean, if I'm talking about the Carboniferous period, it means it is a some millions of years have passed. And like the same ancestor, the same living creature has created the snakes and they have created us. That's amazing. Okay. It also is a classification that contains the Greek tortoise and the Nile crocodile. More about them in the coming videos. So, snakes are also vertebrates. Now, people, what are vertebrates? We have heard a lot about them in our very early school books. Vertebrates. Vertebrates. Okay. So vertebrates are animals with a vertebral column that protects the spinal cord and a skull that protects the brain. So just imagine that there is this animal who is incomplete without its spinal cord and a skull that protects a brain inside it. Okay. So these the any living creature who falls under this category is mostly known as vertebrates. Of course, there are some um, complex animals with a very different anatomy, which has a different structure. But just imagine that these snakes are so much, you know, complex and so old. Like they have come from the Carboniferous period, people, that is a very long time back. Okay. Now, this is very interesting that to accommodate the narrow bodies of the snake, their body structure has evolved through time. So, like it is a common understanding that snakes have come down to us from lizards, and lizards have come down to us from probably much more larger, much more heavier organisms. Now, how have the bodies of the snakes evolved over time? So, the kidneys of the snakes are lined up one after the other, okay? And the snakes have a hip bone, some vestigial claws. Now, what are vestigial claws? Okay, so vestigial body structure means that it is a structure that has stayed in one way or the other just the same throughout the period of evolution. Okay, like there is a chance that if you find that there is a vestigial structure in one of the animals that you see, it means that if you trace the animal back, like as far as you can, probably some millions of years ago, you will find that that particular structure, it might be a tail, it might be a certain weird kind of a horn, it might be a certain weird kind of a nose, some structure coming out of its head, you know that is what it is. And when you notice this thing and you think that okay, this is a vestigial structure in the animal, it means when you go back, you have a chance that even though the animal has changed its structure, you will find that particular body organ or the particular horn or the tail still existing there. Okay, but how evolution goes, it might be existing but it might not have any proper function to do. Okay, so the snakes through which they excrete and they urinate is called cloaca. It is the only opening through which they get to, like put out whatever feces they have, whatever they have digested so far. Okay. So, except in Antarctica, now I don't know because I have not been to Antarctica myself, but I am very curious. So, I will just go and look for myself. Till then, this is the information that except in Antarctica, living snakes are found in every continent and on most smaller land masses. Okay, so exceptions include some big islands such as Ireland, Iceland, Greenland, and the Iceland of New Zealand, and in some of the smaller islands of the Atlantic and the Central Pacific Oceans. There are also sea snakes that are available along the Indian and the Pacific Oceans. Okay, so like just imagine that you are sitting around and you think that so many snakes out there, you know, and they are so uniquely distributed throughout the globe, and it is a very interesting thing to study. Also, you know, there are around 30 families of snakes, and guess how many species of them are there? Any idea? Well, there are 4,170 species. Barbados thread snakes are as tiny as 10.4 centimeter and as large as 6.95 inches. And these these are the tiniest snakes that you can find. Also, the extinct species of Titanoboa cerejoniensis were up to 12.8 meters. I'm not sure if I pronounced it right. Probably I will just go back and check on the pronunciation once again. Maybe I can ask them, can you just help me with the pronunciation of your name if I meet one? But unfortunately, they're extinct. Okay. And they were huge, up to 12.8 meters. I mean, a snake weighing half a meter, I mean, as much as half a meter is way long, but 12.8 meters is, oh my God, that was something. I don't know. If it were not extinct today, what would we have done? So snakes are thought to have, evolved from either burrowing or aquatic lizards, perhaps during the Jurassic period, with the earliest known fossil during between, dating to between 143 and 167 million years ago. Like I mentioned, these creatures, they were, like here for a very long time. So, do you remember how our mothers would often mention that, most species of snakes are non-venomous snakes, like they don't have poison, and like they would say that not every snake is going to harm you, not every snake do have a venom, but then some of them have venoms that can kill you if the snakes put their poison on you, they can kill you. Okay, so these non-venomous snakes that is even more disturbing. They either swallow their prey alive, like they will just gulp you down alive. Well, we know these stories, don't we? And how these creatures have eaten one or the person alive. And like sometimes you find those images out there on the internet and the newspaper, and you find that, oh God, like, like I don't know how to feel about it, but sometimes, I find it that these animals, they are still found in shape once they have taken it out of the snake's stomach. My God. So, the word snaka in Old English is the word from where we get the word snake. Okay. The Swedish word snock, meaning grass snake, is also something wherefrom we get the word snake. The word adder in Old English for a very long term meant snakes, and also later in Old English. Nightray was the general word for snake. Okay, the term serpent is taken from French and from Indo-European term serp, to creep, and like it means like serpent, serp. The meaning of these words are to creep. Okay, so to creep also means to be able to walk on a surface without limbs, which also gave the ancient Greek I crawl and the Sanskrit word sarpa. And we know, right? Like even in Bengali, people call, sometimes in very old Bengali, people call snake shorpo. So it means like like to crawl, you know, in that very old script, and that is where from we get the word, the derivation of the word snaka, serpent, sarpa, shorpu, and in a very usual language we know them as snakes. So, as I have mentioned, that all the snakes have been listed under the group of serpents. Like irrespective of what their old terms, their old derived names were, snaka, serp, etc., etc. But usually, when you need to just like you probably need to know that what is the most relatable, most relevant, and yet the term where from the name snake is derived, it is called the serpent. Okay, so legless lizards are limbless reptiles, and they have evolved, like the snakes have evolved from these lizards. So I'm sure, if the snakes have developed from the legless lizards, it means that the legless lizards have developed from other creatures out there. Probably they were huge. So my people, please note that there are many lizards that have lost their limbs. Okay, so even just in snakes, there are many kind of snakes. Just in lizards, there are many kind of lizards. And now all these lizards, as they have evolved, they have lost their limbs, other functions, and they have become just a vertebrate. And now they are snakes. Like probably if you search, you will find them. Isn't that amazing? So, slow worm is a type of lizard that was native to the western Eurasia and are also known as deaf worm or glass snake. Also, there is Amphisbaenia, that is legless lizard, comprising of 200 extant species. Snakes were first found in the era of Cretaceous, people. Cretaceous is the geological period that lasted from, any idea? Well, it lasted for a month from the 14th of January 2025 to the 14th of February 2025. Well, no, they lasted a bit longer than that, and it was 145 to 66 million years ago. That was a lot of time back. Okay, before you even had your parents, before your parents had you, any time before. So the earliest known true snake fossils, like when I say true snake fossils, I mean that there might be many other fossils out there, but then true snake fossils, it means that like I can put my finger on it and tell that this is real. Like I'm sure that this is a snake fossil, and it comes from the earliest known Simuliophids. They were the marine animals, the oldest. Even among this is the late Cretaceous age, where the Haseophis tetrasanctus from the West Bank dated to between 112 and 94 million years old. Just imagine how far they have changed, right? I mean, first of all, their name itself is so confusing. and I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly, but then God knows. According to the comparative anatomy, the lizards are the actual ancestors of the snakes. Let us find out more. Among the most modern snakes, pythons and boa are the primitive among the snakes. Snakes do not have their front limbs, and this is caused by the evolution of Hox genes, which decides how one's body will look like, and that controlled the limb formation of the snakes. The axial skeleton, the core skeleton of the snakes, had a separate neck, chest, lower back, and the pelvic region, and also the caudal tail and the vertebrae. The vertebrae that, the spinal cord, the column, and the skull that protects the brain. The Hox gene in the snakes are responsible for the development of the thorax, and as a result, the vertebrae before the hind limb buds all have the same thorax-like identity. In other words, most of the snake skeleton is an extremely extended thorax.